New constituencies, new challenges. With mixed member proportional representation introduced both at parliamentary and local government level, the Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ, is gearing up for the August 13th, 2026 general election, having to create 70 more new constituencies from 156 to now 226. It's only 200 days to go. The question is the Electoral Commission of Zambia ready for this mammoth task? Tonight, we explore delimitation and the ECZ preparedness for the polls. My guest is the Electoral Commission of Zambia Chief Electoral Officer, Brown Kasaro. Join me shortly, right after this. Thank you so much for taking the pleasure and time of joining us on Costa's Cross-Examination tonight. It's DSTV 271, GoTV 20, Diamond TV Online on Facebook. Chief Electoral Officer Brown Kasaro, Yasamund, welcome to Costa's Cross-Examination.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and it's good to be able to interact with the citizens through your cross-examination.
Thank you. Let's begin with Friday's, briefing. You were at Mulungushi briefing the nation on the roadmap and launching the delimitation exercise, taking from the chairperson's speech, Mwangala Zalomes, the focus is on specifically three things: delimitation, the Electoral Process Act, where a draft has now been issued, and then the voter register inspection. Some are saying there's too much work to do in very, very little time. Are you equal to the task?
Yes, Costa. As outlined in our briefing on Friday, the Commission has set out a plan to execute on all these three areas. So firstly, the delimitation, which we are looking to conclude by 30th April 2026. The amendment to the Electoral Process Act is also an item that is already on course, and we're looking to leverage the current session of Parliament to enact that amendment, so that the rest of the process as we go to August 13th is in line with the amended Constitution. And as for the inspection, it's an item that was already on the roadmap. So the two items that we really are seeing being introduced following the amendment to the Constitution is the changes in the Electoral Process Act and the delimitation. But as indicated, these are items that we look to conclude in the next couple of months, and then we'll continue to execute as per new legal framework. So we're on course.
One of the spirits really of a healthy democracy and a healthy electoral process is the aspect of consultation and broader consensus. This again was echoed by yourself, the chairperson. Come next week, by the 12th of February, you want to begin district consultations in the 116 districts for the delimitation exercise. Again, there are concerns that the time allocated, 4 days in these districts, 1 full day for a delimitation meeting. Then there is this matter in the Constitutional Court by the People's Action for the Country's Transformation, taking the ECZ and the Attorney General to court in this matter. They are citing obviously aspects around the fact that they believe that there are aspects around certification of the final register, mass voter registration, the inspection window. So while all this is going on, why do you seem determined that there's consultation?
All right, so you're right. So what the Commission has proposed, has put across as a roadmap in terms of the delimitation, is that following the launch of the exercise, the next step is to go into all the 116 districts countrywide to do consultations. And those consultations in each district will focus on their district. So we're meeting stakeholders in all the 116, and these include members of parliament coming from that constituencies, the current constituencies in that district, mayors and council chairperson, the councillors in that district, traditional leaders, civil society organizations, faith-based organizations, and these meetings, heads of government departments, and these meetings will also be open to the public. So what we're putting across to the people out there is an opportunity to be able to make a proposal to the commission to say, yes, the constitution has been amended. The commission has to establish 70 new constituencies. So the stakeholders in their district will say, given what the factors are, we believe we deserve a constituency or so, and here are our reasons. So this is the proposal that we expect to come out of that meeting. Now, the period looks short in terms of 5 days to cover the whole country, but what the commission has done is we have these meetings will be presided over by our district electoral officers. So these are the council secretaries or town clerk for respective districts. So they will be supported by staff from the Electoral Commission, but the district electoral officers will preside over these meetings. And given that the agenda is one item, we believe, and this has been is through experience also, all the delimitation exercise, the consultations at the districts have been a one-day meeting. So 1 day is sufficient for all these stakeholders at the district to deliberate and put across a proposal to the commission to say, we propose that our district deserve a new constituency, and this is the name we would like to give to this constituency, and this is the boundary for the new constituency. The existing one will end here, this new one will cover the side of the district.
So just to get you correctly there, is this delimitation in a way already predetermined by the commission, or are you starting afresh? I ask this because the Mushabati Technical Committee did propose in the constitution making process that there should be 70 more new constituencies and 7 per province. That is how they came up with 70. Is this the process we are following, that we're going to go for 7 per province?
So remember that before the amendment to the Constitution, whether it's a report by the Commission or any other committee or institution, it's merely a recommendation to government. It's a recommendation to say, we'd like the Constitution to be amended and provide for such a number of constituencies. The next step is the amendment, which has now happened. So there were several proposals, and government through Parliament, they settled for 70 new constituencies. Then the next step now, which is entirely the mandate of the Commission, kicks in, which is now to come up with those boundaries of the new constituencies. Granted, the Mushabati Technical Committee gave forward that proposal. But as far as the Commission is concerned, the guidance is very explicit in the Constitution, Articles 58 and 59. So the mandate rests with the Electoral Commission. And the Electoral Commission, using the factors listed in Article 59, will determine where the new constituencies will be.
Will the Commission follow the 70 as an equal distribution per province? Because again, here are the sticky areas where you're being accused of not being transparent. Are you following the 2019 report, or we will follow your recent submissions to the committee in Parliament where you appeared yourself, in terms of when you look at Article 58 and 59, equal fair distribution following geography and so on? Which data will guide, or will your decisions be based on as a commission?
All right. So, yeah, in terms of the what I can say for now is that the commission will not necessarily follow the recommendation to say equal number per province. Why do I say so? It's because the commission is guided by Article 59. And Article 59 is very explicit in terms of the factors to consider. Now, let me spell out a few of them. Firstly, it speaks to consideration for history, diversity, and cohesiveness of a community. Then secondly, it speaks to population density, trends and projections. Already, if we sit here and look at the populations of the 10 provinces of Zambia, very different. So that factor will have to be looked at. Thirdly, the Constitution speaks also of taking into consideration the communication and accessibility and the geographical features. Again, if you look at the terrain of the provinces, very different. You look at Western Province compared to Eastern Province, very diverse, very different. Then the Constitution also, one other factor it does speak to is that the constituencies have to be entirely within a district. So we cannot delimit, we cannot create a constituency that crosses the border of a district. So it has to be within. Then there's, I think it should be the last one, that clearly says you should strive for an equality of population. However, that should be balanced by the need for adequate representation for both urban and rural. So to paraphrase, that speaks to the fact that the Constitution recognizes that urban areas are densely populated. So you have a lot of people in a small area. But rural areas are sparsely populated. But then the delimitation has to take into consideration both scenarios. So with these factors that I've outlined, the Commission cannot start with a constraint to say, all right, we'll give equal number per province, because these have to meet the factors that the Constitution has to. So once we conclude at the end of, by mid-April, the nation will be informed how many constituencies have been created and the allocation, as it were, per province. So the starting point is not an allocation per province. The starting point is subjecting the districts and indeed the factors there as outlined in the Constitution. Then you derive which one qualifies for a new constituency, and then you come up with a total. And then at that point, you'll be able to determine, so all right, this province has had so many and this province has had so many.
The Constitution in Article 58(6) obviously does, provide for this delimitation process to be challenged before a court, or rather, when I look at this particular case in point, the challenge is that there's contravention of Article 58(6). Why are we going ahead with this process, bearing in mind that there is a legal challenge before the Constitutional Court?
Well, I may not speak to the technical details in terms of the legal. So there is, yes, a case before the Constitutional Court by the PACT, that's the acronym.
People's Action for the Country's Transformation, the People's
Yes.
PACT.
So there is the main matter where they're challenging the implementation of the delimitation. But also there was a preliminary matter in terms of seeking an injunction to stop the process. So the judgment was rendered on, I think that was 5th February 2026, to say that the Commission may proceed, if I may put it that way. So the ruling was given in that respect, that the injunction could not be granted, so the Commission can proceed, while the other matter is being attended to in terms of the main matter challenging the whole process, as it were. Yeah.
Rather than not, one of the things you mentioned in that your consideration is also part of history. I just want us to look at from 1991, where we had the first multi-party elections. Zambia then had 125 elected seats. Currently, we are sitting at 156, and this process, if we add the 70, will then bring us to 226. I think, bearing in mind history, how many times, as a country, have we done this delimitation exercise? And I ask this because of the debate around process, sequence, and timing. There are those that are arguing that you are doing this in relation to an election. How have we done it in the past? Because the delimitation, again, is it constitutionally guided that it should be every 10 years, which we missed the mark? And others are arguing to say you cannot delimitate before you do the census. And that's why there's this whole confusion and the Constitution coming in. How has the process, sequence, timing period been in relation to delimitation in the past? And have we changed the process this time around?
No, Costa, we have not change the process. So when it comes to delimitation, yes, Article 59 speaks about the review of constituencies every 10 years, again as a mandate of the Electoral Commission following a census. So each time we've had delimitation, it has been preceded by a national census. Now, there is a little bit of a mix-up in the sense that when it comes to the electoral process, the word delimitation is used with respect to three categories of electoral boundaries. Okay, the one we're discussing now, constituencies, and as you rightly pointed out, as a nation, we have rarely done. It's a countable number of times when we transitioned to the Third Republic, and then there's the recent one in 2016 when we increased by 6. So it's been a very rare occurrence that we've had delimitation of constituencies. I'll come back to it. The next type of delimitation is for ward boundaries. So this is for purposes of election to the council. So we demarcate a district into wards which are contested for by councillors. This is again a mandate of the Electoral Commission. Now, then the third is polling stations, establishment of new polling stations where people can firstly go to register to vote and then ultimately cast their ballot come election day. So those are the 3 levels of delimitation. So the Commission has consistently done, before every major election we've done delimitation, at least every 10 years we've done delimitation of polling station, increase the number.
This is guided by the tenure of census.
Yes.
The census has to proceed.
Yeah. In some instances, like the 2010 was unique because of COVID, census did not take place, so we had to use the previous census. But in any case, it was still
2020 then.
Yeah, 2020. So I was speaking to delimitation of polling. So the Commission has been consistent when it comes to the 2 electoral boundaries whose numbers are not tied in the Constitution. So your polling stations, entirely the mandate of the Commission to establish new polling station. Wards, again, up to the Commission in consultation with government. So that was done in 2019, leading to the 2021 general election. So the numbers are not tied in the Constitution. Now, for constituencies, what has been happening is that the Commission would get into the ground, do an assessment, and produce a report and submit that report to government. In the report is a recommendation to inform the amendment of the Constitution in terms of arriving at the number. So the report you refer to for 2019 was not the first. There was another in 2014 and even previously. So the Commission would go on the ground. So from our assessment, we recommend, so for 2019 the recommendation would recommend 94 new constituencies be established. But before that is actualized, there has to be an amendment of the Constitution. And that did not happen in 2020 or 2021. So therefore, it remained a report as a recommendation to the executive, and that's where it sits.
So based on that,
so now,
the question, based on that, is the delimitation process, when we talk about the actual demarcation of constituencies, not the polling stations, not the wards, undertaken after a constitutional process or before?
It's after. So this is what I was saying. The word sometimes is loosely used for the processes before, because you cannot delimit, you cannot determine new constituency boundaries without amending the Constitution, because that number is fixed in the Constitution. So before December 18th, the Constitution says Zambia has 156. So the Commission, in strict terms, could not demarcate those boundaries. It could merely make a recommendation. Now, after that, the Constitution was amended. Now we know that is 226. Now the Commission can go on the ground and establish those boundaries exactly. So this is the new constituency, and then we publish in the government gazette. So these now are the 226 constituencies. So that is the sequence. Now, in terms of, I think what people may be referring to is the electoral cycle. Okay, so there are certain processes that are spoken to. Elections, as election practitioners, we refer to elections in terms of a cycle. It's a cyclic process, and each cycle punctuated by a general election. So in Zambia, our cycle is 5 years. So you have the pre-election period, the election period, and the post-election period. So in the pre-election period, this is the time you usually do your legal changes, and then you do your amendment of the laws and all that. Then you proceed. If you need to do delimitation, you do your delimitation. Now, this is especially for the lower level boundaries, establishment of polling stations and your wards.
Let's get back to please.
Yeah. So now, then you follow that up with registration of voters, and then you proceed now to the campaign period and the conduct of the poll. So now the issue is, whereas for delimitation of polling stations, you cannot do that after you've already registered voters, because voters are tied to a polling station.
But let's just go back to the statement that you just made.
Yes.
You were saying you can not delimitate before you delimitate, then you register the voters, or it has to be the other way around?
So if it's for lower level boundaries, that's where they're going to vote. So,
but these are the challenges you're now hearing, that you already did the voter registration and the delimitation is now coming afterwards. So won't there be irregularities once these boundaries have been drawn up in terms of, and this was a question asked to you, I think on Friday,
yes,
and watching you were giving an example of a polling station at the University of Zambia. So here is the question, and the argument again that the ECZ this time around has done things differently, in that you've gone and registered people and then you're coming to demarcate, so meaning some will have to shift into the new boundaries.
All right, so let me clarify that again, that when it comes to delimitation of constituencies, remember, as I was explaining, that the lower level boundary, especially the polling stations, those have to be delimited before you register voters, because voters have to know. Now, when it comes, that was done. So for 2020, that was done in 2019, 2020. As we, in the lead up to the 2026 general election, we've not established any new polling stations. So the polling centers remain as they were leading up to the 2021 general election. Okay. Now, when it comes to constituencies,
before you get there, will there be any new polling stations for 2026?
All right. So let me explain that again in a little more detail. So we speak of polling stations in two senses, as it were. Let's use the same University of Zambia example. So University of Zambia is a polling station or polling center. Now, as the Electoral Commission, for ease of administration of the election on that day, there's a threshold we put on the number of voters that can vote in a single room. Okay, so that is also referred to as a polling station. So as we sit, for 2021, for argument's sake, the University of Zambia may have had 8 rooms or 8 polling stations, but it's still in the same location. But now we registered more voters. If we apply that threshold to say, okay, every room can only accommodate 900 or 800 voters, if they get to be more, we may have 10 rooms at the University of Zambia. But yet again, this will be communicated way in advance. But in terms of centers, we remain at the centers that we had in 2021. At a particular center, the number of rooms may increase because of the increase in the number of voters that we've had to register since then. So I hope that clarifies. So coming back to delimitation of constituencies, this is not the first time that delimitation of constituencies is taking place after voter registration. 2016 is a classic example. The Constitution was amended in 2016 itself. This time around it's 2025, or December, but it was amended in 2016. Now, that amendment introduced 6 new constituencies. We had to delimit those after we had already done. Voter registration was done in 2015. But because these are higher level boundaries, it does not disenfranchise the voter. So let me explain that again, what do I mean by it does not disenfranchise the voter. Again, you refer to the example that I gave on Friday, so let me probably use the same. The University of Zambia is a polling center, okay? So during voter registration, if a new voter, never mind the ones that were already registered, but if a new voter went there and registered to say, come August 13th, I want to vote at the University of Zambia Sports Hall. They registered, they were issued a card. Now, this time around, we're going on the ground to establish new constituencies. If, for example, we applied these factors to Lusaka district, okay, and realize that as per the factors in Article 59, Lusaka district requires new constituencies. And let's take, for example, that because of that, we have had to split Munali constituency. So this side of Great East Road, as you know, as you're growing in the eastern direction, the northern side of Great East Road is maybe what remains as Munali. The southern side, let's for argument's sake call it Mtendere constituency or Kalingalinga constituency. That will be the only change. But the voter that registered at the University of Zambia, come election day, they will still go to vote at the University of Zambia at that polling station. None of their details change. The only thing that has changed now is that if they were already registered...
But their constituency has changed.
Yes. So let's come back to that. What is the constituency there for? Representation to Parliament. Even if they were to remain in Monali constituency, the issue for the voter is not that I want to belong to Monali constituency. No, the issue of the voter is I want to elect a representative for me as a voter to go to Parliament. In 2021, that representative stood on the Monali constituency. But now, this representative is standing in the Kalingalinga or Mtendere constituency.
Let's just get clarity on this, Chief Electoral Officer.
Yeah.
I think the communication that needs to happen, and I think as a commission you need to do a lot of sensitization. Exactly. The worry is that when you begin these physical demarcations, you have already done voter registration. So if I am a registered voter at Woodlands, school,
yeah.
under Lusaka Central, for example, and you divide Lusaka Central into Lusaka Central and Lusaka West, like you're explaining, what will happen with my current voter's card and my voter details?
Yes. So let's start with the voter's card. Nothing changes on the voter's card because what the voter's card carries is the name of the voter and the polling station that voter is registered to vote at. So in this case, we gave the example of Woodlands B. None of those two details are changing. The voter still goes to Woodlands B. Their card is valid. Now, I know we use the words demarcate, and sometimes that may create a picture as if we are literally on the ground moving territories, moving villages. Now this village moves. No, we are merely designating that, and let me add here that for this delimitation, we are, in establishing the new constituencies, we are not tampering with the ward boundaries. Okay? So the polling stations remain the same. The wards also remain the same. So if, like you've used, Lusaka Central has, let's say, 6 wards, the demarcation would be, now these 3 wards would be in a new constituency, these others remain. That's all. So you're not literally moving people. What is changing is the constituency to which they are voting. Yeah.
That is explained for the voter.
Yeah.
And I'll take voter into context.
Yeah.
And as an expert, you guide us. What about for a voting candidate? And I want to give this example of what recently happened in the Chawama by-election, where one candidate was contesting in Chawama but was a registered voter in another constituency. So what will happen to candidates, for example, again, if I am registered in Lusaka Central and then this designation, I will not call it demarcation, designation happens into another constituency, and I'm adopted to contest in the other, but I'm registered in the previous one.
All right. So
I hope I'm
yes, the question is clear. Thank you. So the constitutional requirement for a person to contest a parliamentary seat is to be a registered voter. That's all. Not a registered voter in a particular constituency they want to contest. As long as you're a registered voter, you qualify. That's the only requirement as far as voter registration is concerned. So, if ideally, the way we structure voter registration, ideally is that people or voters there went to register at the polling station closest to where they ordinarily reside. Ideally, you would expect that a person would contest for election in the community they ordinarily reside.
But are you saying then, CEO, that I can register as a voter in Lusaka, but I want to contest in Kitwe?
Yes.
And I necessarily don't need to vote in Kitwe?
No. You're a registered voter. The only thing you miss is your own vote. You will not vote for yourself.
So this does not disqualify a candidate?
No. A candidate only requirement is for a candidate to be a registered voter.
So what was the instance in Chawama, for example?
So the instance in Chawama is that the candidate for the FDD who emerged winner was a registered voter, is a registered voter in Chama for the current registered voter, the certified. During the 2025 mass registration, the person applied to transfer, to go and register, to go and vote in Chawama. But that register has not been certified yet. So yes, they're a registered voter, but they're not registered in Chawama. So they were able to contest.
But then there was a story that emerged that, for example, the previous UPND candidate could not take part because they were not registered in Chawama.
The reports that we also got is that which information we gave to say the qualification is you're a registered voter on the certified. And the communication from the commission was very clear that those who registered during the mass registration are not yet on the certified register. So even if they were not candidates, even just voting, they were not able to vote in the Chawama by-election. So that was the issue. The person registered during the 2025 mass registration and was not yet on the register, the certified register, which will only be certified on 30th.
So they could not vote?
They could not vote, and therefore they were not a registered voter.
Because they had registered, but the register has not been certified.
Mm-hmm.
Is there still chance at this moment for people, especially with the delimitation coming through and the voter register inspection, to change?
Yes, there is an opportunity to transfer. During the inspection exercise, so they are scheduled the inspection exercise to take place from 2nd of March to 8th of March, where all this close to 9,000 centers across the country will be open for all those 7 days. So let's use the simple word, polling stations. So all the polling stations countrywide will open for those 7 days. And a selected number, 2,000 of them, strategically located, will be equipped with the voter registration kits. If a person would like to replace a lost card, they have that opportunity. If a person would like to transfer, meaning change their voting station to another, they will be able to do that. The only thing that will not be allowed is new registrations. That one closed.
Let's talk about, again, concerns from stakeholders regarding this, electoral, register. Most have asked for an external audit. Had the register gone through an external audit in recent times?
Not that I'm aware of. So, probably maybe to just explain to viewers out there. When you speak about audit, is really to ascertain that the records on the register meet the legal requirements for a person to be there. So every person, all those numbers that the Commission issues, want to ensure that each and every of those persons qualifies to be on that register. Now, what the Commission has consistently stated to the public is that, look, the law provides for the inspection of the provisional register. Audit is merely a technical term, but ultimately it's really an inspection of the register, which process we've already provided for. And rather than limit it to an individual or to a firm, what is provided for in the law is public display of the register, so that members of the public, those of register, can check and ensure that the person, no person that does not qualify to be there is there, but primarily to check that their details are reflecting as they...
So just to be corrected, are you saying that the law does not provide for an audit, and what would require or what would necessitate that such an audit be done? The figures you gave out on Friday, you're saying about 1,788,405 were the new voters captured, more recently, bringing this to a total of 8.861,918. So how do we clean up those that have died and those that are of age, and this whole reconciliation? What do we call it, an inspection or an audit? Is it not necessary?
So what is provided for by the law is an inspection, and that covers all those aspects. So as the Electoral Commission itself, as part of its mandate, because it's the institution trusted to come up with this register. So the aspect of what is referred to as cleaning up is done by the Electoral Commission. When it comes to the deceased, the law provides that a person can report to say this person has since died. Submit the necessary document, that person will be taken out of the register. So all those are provided for during this inspection process. So that is what is provided in terms of making sure that the register is credible before its certification to be utilized for a general election.
Out of this 1.788, what has come out is that Southern Province in particular has witnessed increased numbers on the register compared to other provinces. What has necessitated some of this? And I don't want to depend on hearsay, but this question has come up several times. Did you as a commission distribute more kits into Southern Province? Did you extend the working hours? And politics being what they are, I mean, the electoral process is part of politics and campaign. Others want to even now tie. We have not seen the constituencies to be delimitated, but saying because of these numbers, delimitation of constituencies will happen more in these places which are believed or perceived to be strongholds of some parties.
Yeah, so in terms of the voter registration process, the Electoral Commission the ECZ was very transparent. The Commission said clearly that the operation will be guided by the number of polling stations right across the country. So those are what were transformed to registration centers. And as was clearly stated, the Commission was going to spend a specific number of days per registration center. And based on the number of registration centers across the country, the distribution of equipment was to make sure that within that period, we spend an equal number of days at each registration center. And this is what exactly happened.
Are you
in
sure,
terms of
CEO,
deployment,
was the exercise fair in all provinces? Was it equal? Was the information clear?
The information was very clear. In terms of advertising, in terms of deployment of voter education facilitators, the foot soldiers, to inform the public, equitable distribution depending on the numbers of registration centers in each of the districts. The start date exactly the same, closing date exactly the same. So all the whole operation did not bias any province. We approached this from an equal footing and registered the numbers that we registered. I may not have to speak to the numbers exactly, but you see, with statistics, it's easy to begin to read into rather than just look at the numbers.
And I was going to ask you that as a follow-up, based on the data, and I talk about, because you've been giving regular updates. When you gave an update at your office, I think you broke down these numbers in terms of where the trends were going. Why then, or what would the analysis tell us? Why Lusaka and Copperbelt, when you compare in terms of size, of population, in comparison to rural areas, considering the fact that Lusaka has population density and shorter distances to registration centers, why would an urban setup register lower numbers than rural areas? What is the data showing us?
So, exactly. The data is showing that Lusaka, in terms of comparative sense, in terms of as a percentage of the population, was very low performing. Now, this is against the background that Lusaka as a district had the highest number of kits deployed because of the population, because of the number of registration centers in Lusaka. So Lusaka had about 200 on every day during that registration period. 200 centers were open in Lusaka. If you talk about access to the media, that's Lusaka. If you talk about access to information, it's Lusaka. So this, of course, the Commission will need to do a detailed research thereafter to determine the reasons why. But at where we stand, all we can attribute it to is just apathy. Because Lusaka cannot claim that the registration centers were very far.
That's the question. Why would Copperbelt and Lusaka have lower numbers?
We were there waiting for the people. Yes, they turned up, for example, the day before the last extension. Remember, we ended up doing a 3-day extension. Now, the day before that 3-day extension, we had serious queues in Lusaka. And this is what informed the Commission to say, all right, let's go ahead and do extend. The Commission even went further to say, let's, courtesy to business houses like ShopRite, let's take kits to ShopRite. And people were able to register there, meaning, should we follow people to their homes to go and register? I think this is a civic duty that we should take seriously as a nation, as citizens, to say, I'm 18, I need to register as a voter. So that is we take it as a challenge, but it's also a challenge to all of us as a nation to say, look, for Lusaka, there's no excuse really.
So what is your assurance then in terms of transparency? Because any election's credibility is based on its integrity through the process. These claims of why are certain provinces or areas that are alleged to be strongholds of particular parties having so many numbers?
Yeah. So that's why I was saying that depending on how you read the statistics, you have to look at those figures firstly in terms of absolute terms as numbers. But then you also have to look at those numbers in relation to the population. If my memory serves me right, I think Luapula province was the highest performing in terms of as a percentage of eligible citizens. No one is talking about that, so we're biased towards Luapula. It's because in absolute terms, the numbers look low because the population in Luapula is lower than the population in other provinces like Southern. So that's what we have to look at when we look at these numbers, not just say, all right, you've registered 50,000 here, why? So, and this is what I keep drawing us to say, how did the Commission approach it? What were the inputs into this process? How was the process managed? The process was transparently managed. The distribution is not an issue that was a secret. Information was shared, the deployment plans, when the centers would open, when the centers would be closed, and so forth. So everyone had equal access.
Do you as a commission, through this registration process, work hand in hand with political stakeholders? We've been hearing stories of voters being ferried to registration centers by political parties through various processes. Have you also received reports of quote-unquote non-Zambians being given voters' cards, people coming from the border in Malawi or Tanzania and whatever, making these numbers, and hence the calls for this audit on the register.
So, in terms of collaboration or indeed stakeholder engagement, the Commission at every stage of the process always undertakes to consult and engage and inform. And in this particular case, political parties are key stakeholders in voter registration. So yes, as we were building up to the voter registration, we did a lot of engagements for them to appreciate how we're going to approach this process and so forth. Now, in terms of reports around border areas and so, this is not new. Okay, it's an issue that has come up almost every time that we do voter registration. But what the nation can rest assured is that for example, the 1.7, for each of those 1.7 million voters, for each of those records, one of the qualifications, if not the main qualification for a person to register as a voter, is that the person is a Zambian citizen. But how does someone prove citizenship? National registration card. And this is not a document that we just leave it to the registration officer to look at, examine, and that's it. We take a scan of it. So each of those 1.7 million people, we have a scan of their national registration card, that they are Zambians. Valid national registration card. Now, we'll get these reports. For us, our basis and confidence in terms of the integrity of the law is each of those records has it with it.
Do you investigate these reports?
Yes, we investigate, and the investigations we do is to say, is each and every of these records that we have, does it meet the requirement for this person to be on the register of voter? Are they Zambian? Do we have a green national registration card attached to their record?
For the sake of time, I want us to move to the amendment of the Electoral Process Act that talks about mixed member proportional representation. But just quickly, for the sake of the nation, run us through what was launched on Friday in terms of the delimitation process. 12th of February is supposed to start the district consultations. How does it move from there?
Yeah, so 12th of February, we meet with our officials from the districts to walk them through again how they ought to facilitate and manage their consultations in their respective districts. So we go through an orientation and look at the factors, because remember, delimitation, yes, we do stakeholder consultation, but from the factors I pointed out, it's a technical exercise. One has to look at population figures, settlement patterns, so we have to share maps of their respective districts and look at the pattern of settlement in their districts and so forth. So that's what we're going through this coming week, Thursday, Friday. Then Monday the following, the 16th, we start stakeholder consultations in the districts. Now, that will run up to Friday. Each district will have a one-day meeting. Now, we'll be right across the country, on average about 25 districts per day meeting to discuss these issues for their respective districts. They come up with a proposal outlining, this is the boundary, we want to name this constituency, that, name this, these words will fall in new constituency, these other words will remain in the old constituency, this is the name, and here's the map, and this is our proposal, and these are our reasons when we compare to Article 59 in terms of population and all these other factors. So they make that proposal, and starting the 23rd of, I think that week of the 23rd of February, the Commission now will sit at each of the provinces, and the reports from the respective districts in that province will be presented to the Commission to say, in this district, we held a meeting, we consulted, we looked at the factors, and our proposal is we deserve a constituency based on A, B, C, D.
Is the one-day meeting surely enough, CEO? Because the whole thing seems very rushed.
Like I said, historically, whenever we've done delimitation, the consultation meetings at the district have been one day. It is sufficient time. It's not, and looking at the stakeholders we're looking at, and looking at the subject, it's not a strange subject. It's been topical in this country for some time. So it's not, they're not coming up with these recommendations from scratch. It's things that stakeholders have been discussing, have been deliberating, and all. When it comes to Lusaka, for example, people always refer to Kanyama. No Kanyama. So when you call stakeholders in Lusaka, it won't be, difficult for them to say, all right, here we are with the situation we're in Lusaka. We believe this should be our new constituency, and for these reasons. And
based on the roadmap, when does the public get to know the 70 new constituencies? And again, you're targeting the fact that Parliament will dissolve by May 15th. So these again will have to, the Commission will have to execute and take back to Parliament.
Yeah, so the provincial meetings that I was talking about are scheduled to end mid-March. Then the Commission now will review all those submissions, again subject them to the factors, and then determine the 70. By April 15th, the nation will be informed of the 70 new constituencies through the government gazette and publication in the media, and obviously the Commission will make a statement to that effect. These are the 70 new constituencies. And as you've rightly pointed out, they take effect at the dissolution of Parliament on May 2026.
So by April, we should know.
By 15th April, the nation will know the 70 new constituencies.
Yeah. Let's now the argument, and this is why people are saying all these things happening. The amendment to the Constitution has brought about now the delimitation. It also brings about a different type of electoral system, because for presidential level elections, after the 2016 amendment, we went into a majoritarian, the 50% plus one voted presidential level. We are using the first past the post at parliamentary level, but now there's this new twist of the mixed member proportional representation, the 40 that have been added, and the dynamics that they bring. Now, the worry, CEO, is that we are very clear on the 40 seats for Parliament. We are not very clear at what's going to happen at local government level. Can you run us through how this will work?
All right. So, you're right. The amendment to the Constitution has introduced a new electoral system. Now, in simple terms, what it's saying is that in terms of elected members of Parliament, there's two different kinds now. There's those who will be elected through the 226 constituencies, okay? And then there's those who will be elected as a proportion of the percentage of votes their presidential candidate would have obtained. And then they nominate. Now, for National Assembly, the Constitution has provided 20 women, 15 youth, 5 persons with disability. For local,
14 total.
Yes. For the local government, the Constitution says to be prescribed, and this is one of the items in the amendment to the Electoral Process Act. So the draft bill that has been circulated is proposing that a certain classification of, so depending on the number of current wards that are in a particular district, then a number of seats for proportional representation are recommended. Let me probably refer to the act.
Please, because it's 200 days before an election, CEO Kasaro, and we either this is being kept a secret. Shouldn't we be very clear on where we're going?
We are clear. I think the amendment to the Electoral Process Act outlines this, okay? So the councils have been broken down into 3 categories, okay? So those with seats, I don't have the numbers on my fingertips, but those with seats, I think is less than 20, okay, who nominate for...
When we're talking seats, these are wards?
Yeah, wards, okay? So the prescription here follows the principle of the National Assembly. If you notice in the National Assembly PR seats, we have women with more seats. Then the second level is youth and then persons with disability. So you have 20, 15, 5. So that's similar, not in exact proportions, but the similar principle has been taken down now to the council.
Have the numbers been proposed for people to look at now in terms of?
Yes, the numbers are in the draft bill, in the electoral process.
And this determination again will be based on presidential vote?
Yes, it's presidential vote, but the presidential vote within that district. So how the candidate performs in a particular district, those are the votes that will be used now to determine the sponsoring party, how many seats that party will qualify to obtain on a proportional basis into the council. Yeah.
They say democracy is an expensive process, but with the new budgeting act, the 2026 budget was adopted in 2025, presented in September and adopted in December of 2025. What does this do to your budget? Are you capacitated enough because of these new changes? Surely it changes the whole financial aspect for delimitation, for new constituencies, because it means you're printing more ballots and doing more work.
Yes, I think the starting point is that the Constitution has been amended. So and it has to be implemented. We are in consultation with government, and from our end, we have shared to say, for us to actualize the Constitution, these are the necessary adjustments that we need to make to the budget that we had submitted.
So surely it's not enough. You need more money.
Yes, we need more money, and we have tabled that before the Treasury, and they're working to fund us through their respective their modalities. So they would seek the necessary approvals and source the funds to be able to support the commission or fund the commission to execute on
this. Being a public exercise, CEO, how much will this cost us as a country?
Yeah, so you recall that last year we had indicated to the nation that the election was going to cost about 1.9 billion kwacha. The adjustment has taken it to over 2 billion kwacha. That's the numbers that we have submitted to the Treasury. Yeah.
And so the indications, are we working with cooperating partners? Is this money going to be financed purely by the taxpayers' money?
Taxpayers' money, if it's cooperating partners through the Treasury itself, but from the perspective of the Commission, this is through the Treasury, so taxpayers' money. Yeah. Now, but I've since found the numbers. So the proposal in the Electoral Amendment Act is that for a council with 20 ward-based seats or below. So if a district has 20 wards or less, the PR seat for that district will be 2 women, 1 youth, and 1 person with disability. So that's 4 in total.
2 women, 1
youth, and 1 person with disability. That's a proposal.
So 4 in total?
4 in total.
That's the first tier of 20?
Yes, tier of 20. Then, for a council with 21 to 30 ward-based seats. So 21 to 30 ward-based seats, 3 women, 2 youth, and 1 person with disability.
5. No, 6 rather.
Oh, 6. Thank you.
3 women, 2
youth, 1 person with disability. So that's
6.
Then the last category is a district that has more than 30 or 31 or more ward-based seats. A classic example would be Lusaka. I think Lusaka has 39 wards. Okay, so a district with 31 or more ward-based seats will have 4 women, 3 youth, and 2 persons with disabilities.
That is 9.
9, yes.
And these are a proposal in the draft bill at the moment?
Yes, these are proposed in the draft bill.
So, following consultations, this can change?
This can change.
Run us through again the process and the timelines for the Electoral Process Act?
So with this draft bill now, we're proceeding to have consultations this coming week with stakeholders. We shared it for them to read through and then we'll have consultations this coming week where we expect to receive feedback. And this will be handed over to the Ministry of Justice. And through the Ministry of Justice, the bill will be tabled before Parliament in this session. Okay, this is a legislative session, so it will be, and I think I think I'm well informed that I think Parliament will adjourn mid-March. So the target is that before Parliament adjourns, this bill is considered. And as the process in Parliament, the bill will be read at some point. It will reach a committee stage where, again, stakeholders will have an opportunity to make submissions in terms of the provisions in the bill. And then thereafter, the enactment. So we're looking at, by the end of March, the amendment is passed and it becomes law. So then, as we prepare for the nominations in May, then we can operate under the basis of the new the amended Electoral Process Act.
Will this May amendment of the Electoral Process Act be enough, or are we as a country going to come up with an Electoral Systems Act as well? Because obviously this needs to tie in now into internal processes of the political parties themselves, because if we take the constituency-based proportional representation, each party contesting an election at presidential level, because that's where the percentage or the proportion is counted, will need to submit the 40.
Yes.
And will also need to submit these numbers at local government level.
Yes. So this, if you recall, I think as we, the current act that provides for the management of the electoral process, it was named the Electoral Process Act for exactly that purpose, so that it can encompass all aspects of management of the electoral process. So as far as these changes are concerned, this amendment covers them in terms of the Electoral Process Act. So it is in there, this amendment, that will provide for how to submit the lists. You know, when should the list be submitted? Who should submit? How should the list be organized? For example, one of the things we've provided for is that whereas the 20 are strictly women, for the 15 youth, we're proposing a zebra list. What I mean there is that if you start with a male youth, the second one should be female, and you switch them like that. It's not that because women have the 20, therefore the 15 youth are entirely for males. No, no, no. Even that, you know. So all those nitty-gritties are provided for. Let me just address one thing. There are other aspects to do with how parties are organized and the whole management of so that's a separate issue. As a commission, we're aware that there is a political parties bill being worked on how to manage, how to register, how to manage political parties and so forth. But as far as the Electoral Process Act is concerned, it's covering every aspect of the amendments of the Constitution, so that then as we actualize the 2026 conduct the general election, we are in line with the Constitution.
I was going to ask a writer to say it's very straightforward to determine who is a woman, unless in other jurisdictions. But what criteria are we going to use for youth? Because there's different definitions of youth in Zambia. Others are saying anyone below 35. Others use the AU. Or what would be the criterion to determine who is a youth?
Yeah, so the Constitution provides for that, so 35 years and below. And what the bill has gone on to propose and prescribe is that the person that the political party will put on that list, in terms of, for purposes of the 15 youth, has to remain a youth for the life of this next session of Parliament.
I think that's an important point. Just say that again.
So, in short, one has to, by the end of the next session of Parliament,
they still need
to be a youth. So you cannot nominate someone who's 34 years.
So if you're contesting the 2026 election as a youth, at least you must be 30.
Yeah, somewhere there.
So that
the oldest you can be is 30.
By 2031, you must be within
35, yes. So maybe 29 or 28. Yeah. So the oldest you can be is 29, so that by 2031, you're not 36, you must be 35 and below. Yeah.
Very quickly, there are certain statements or rather regulations that you've issued as we go to the election. One of them we saw in the by-elections is that you, part of the, is it under the act you're saying that political parties should not campaign using regalia of candidates or people who are later. We want clarity on that. More recently, last week, you also issued a statement saying presidential candidates participating in elections should make sure that they now begin to submit to the Commission copies of their certificates from the Registrar of Societies. But we are seeing now alliances, and certainly our Constitution does provide for freedom of association and alliances. You're being now accused of overstepping, trying to disenfranchise people and their democratic and constitutional rights.
Yeah. So I think two things there. Firstly, it's to do with regalia. Yeah. So yes, the Constitution provides for freedom of association and assembly. Now, when it comes to contestation in an election, the Electoral Process Act provides for how that ought to be done. And one of the provisions is that when you are contesting, as a candidate, you have certain symbols and material that associate with a particular candidate. And that's what must be used as campaigns are made. Now, where associations and alliances are formed, they ought to be registered appropriately. And then the symbols for that alliance and so forth, could be used. But where the symbols and so on are for a totally different entity altogether, the law is very clear. All the Commission was bringing to the attention of political parties contesting is this what the law says. Adhere to it. Not targeting anyone, not everyone.
So what are you asking? What do you require? You want the alliances to go and be registered with the Registrar of Societies?
If you are contesting an election as an alliance, let it be registered. Okay? Let it be registered. Because if you're contesting, because when you're filing a nomination, when a candidate is filing a nomination, they indicate, is the candidate contesting as an independent or sponsored by a political party?
But what law says that, CEO? Because even in the past, let's take 2021 for example, there were alliances, and it's not the first time we're having alliances. So the UPND, as a registered political party, fielded in President Hakainde Hichilema, but other political parties rallied and campaigned alongside him because they were not on the ballot. So what is different this time around?
Nothing is different. The whole issue is that all the Commission has done is to clarify the law and just rather to inform the public what the law provides.
Which law is this we're referring to?
This is the Electoral Process Act itself.
And what does it say?
I may not quote you the exact section, okay? But the Electoral Process Act provides. So it defines campaign materials. It provides the definition of campaign materials and regulates how those campaign materials ought to be used in respect of a candidate for a campaign in an election. And that's what the Commission was clarifying to stakeholders out there participating in elections. So now, in terms of alliances, this is not the first time, like you said, that alliances, if you go back to 2006, PACs were registered and common symbols arrived at and so forth, and they participated in an election, sponsor a candidate. But the issue here is that if Costa files nominations, Costa will indicate I'm standing as an independent or I'm sponsored by political party A.
But
can there be that consistency?
What is wrong? What is wrong, for example, if I am standing on the FDD ticket and I come and file in nominations under FDD as a registered political party?
Yes.
Okay. But party X, Y, and Z say they will not contest as candidates, but they will support the FDD candidate and we're in an alliance. What is wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing. I don't think that's what the Commission is saying. What the Commission is saying is this candidate has filed under FDD. And FDD has the campaign material and the symbols that are associated with FDD. Use those symbols, use those materials that are associated with FDD to campaign. Others can support you.
Why can't the other parties supporting you use also their materials as a political party supporting you?
That is what the law says. The Electoral Commission is there to implement, and that's what we shared with the public. Remember, the law was not drafted by the Commission, as it were.
The Act explicitly says that a political party that says they will not participate cannot support another candidate?
No, I think we're mixing two things. We're mixing support versus using symbols and material belonging to that are different from the person that is contesting and under what ticket they're contesting.
So to get you correctly,
yeah.
We know that the MDC with President Felix Mutati is in an alliance with the UPND.
Mm-hmm.
So they cannot stand on a campaign platform wearing an MDC T-shirt while supporting President Hichilema.
They cannot distribute campaign material while in MDC and saying vote for the UPND candidate.
They cannot do that.
No,
but this is what has been happening because they refer themselves as the UPND alliance.
So what you're speaking to is enforcement, okay, which the Electoral Commission works in collaboration with the police and other law enforcement agencies in terms of enforcement. But what we're speaking to is...
Which you've not done, and this is why the opposition are crying foul that you're being selective.
No. Spelling out what the law says is not being selective. It's stating what the law says, okay? Enforcement is the next step now. So we've been spelling out, this is what the law says regarding symbols and campaign material. Then when it comes to enforcement, it's an item that, as we start with the education, and then we can graduate, say, now that you are aware that this is how we ought to conduct ourselves on the campaign field, can you then adhere to these provisions? So what we've done for now is merely state. So
and you're saying those provisions are in the electoral process?
Yes. In the statement that we did issue to the public, should be, I think, Section 28. Section 2 defines campaign materials, and I think it's Section 20. In the statement that we issued at the Electoral Commission, we're very explicit in terms of the actual provisions in the Electoral Process Act.
Does the law also disallow, for example, and we've seen this world over, that, for example, if UNIP says we want to continue the legacy of our founding father, KK, and they've got material with KK there who is not active on the ballot, if the PF, for example, said, or the MMD said we want to have Chiluba or Sata or Lungu, does the law disallow that?
The law just merely defines campaign material. So if those symbols and images associated are defined under that particular party or organizations, well and good.
So my final question is on this statement from last week. Just to be very clear, what are you asking parties do with the Register of Societies? That they should go and register their alliances?
So firstly, let me correct, there's a misconception. There was a forged statement that was issued, I think that was January 31st. And in which case we are in the process of reporting to the police. There was a forged statement to the effect that the Commission was saying, had altered the nomination requirements for presidential candidates. No, and that statement was, we issued a disclaimer, clearly, categorically saying we had never issued such a statement, and explaining to the public that the qualifications for nomination for any elective position, presidential, National Assembly, are outlined in the Constitution. And the Constitution, as it was amended on 18th December, did not change the qualifications. The only change had to do with other aspects of the Constitution. So as far as qualifications are concerned, for presidential candidates, they remain as they were. And that's what the Commission will follow when receiving the nomination papers. So the public, rest assured, if you qualify as per Constitution, you can rest assured that you submit your nominations and as has been done before, and you should be able to contest it.
So there's no credence that you're asking for certificates from the Register of Societies?
What has been provided for in the Electoral Process Amendment Act is really to clarify this issue, to say, which has always been there, to say, if a candidate A says that I'm being sponsored by party A, Can we have documentation to show that the party has really sponsored you? We're not saying, can you demonstrate that you're a member of that party? Can you demonstrate how long? No. We're saying this particular party has sponsored a candidate, whether it's presidential or parliamentary.
So the issue, you want the party to write to the ECZ?
Yes, which has always been done. The party issues an adoption.
Nothing to do with the Registrar of Societies.
It's a document from the party. Registrar of Societies to show that for me to sign as an official office bearer for that political party, because for us to receive a document, it's the same as, for Diamond TV, Diamond Media. If for a document to be recognized as official, you have to be an office holder within this institution. So it's the same for a political party. I think the law is clear there that the Secretary General is the executive. So can the Secretary General advise?
It's nothing to do with the membership.
For the candidate, the candidate is not the issue.
If I'm being endorsed or adopted as a candidate for political party X, all you're saying is the Secretary General or the office bearer of that needs to write and clarify.
Give you an adoption certificate. So when you say write and clarify, it's like an essay and explain. It's just an adoption certificate. As Party A, we have adopted Costa Mansa as a presidential candidate. First up.
Finally, CEO, is the Commission ready to deliver a free, fair, and credible election with all these things to happen in the next probably 100 days before Parliament dissolves, or 200 days before August 13th?
Yeah, so the nation out there can rest assured that the Commission will conduct the 2026 general election on 13th August. And this assurance is based on the roadmap that was put across. And the nation will be following as we implement step by step, because these things build one on top of the other. So right now we're saying the next thing we're doing delimitation. While that is going, we'll also be displaying the provisional register of voters to be inspected. Once that is closed, we release the 70 new constituencies early mid-April. End of April, we certify the register of voters, so the nation will know how many electors they expect to turn up on August 18th to vote for the various categories. Mid-May, we conduct the nominations at all the levels, presidential, National Assembly, and mayor and councillor level. Then the campaign period is opened up, and then we print the ballot papers. Come August 13th, we conduct the election. So the nation can rest assured that the Commission is on course to implement all these activities that build up to readiness come 13th August 2026.
Chief Electoral Officer Brown Kasaro, it's really a mammoth task in the next 200 days. All the best, and we'll continue tracking.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Okay.
The wraps up Costa's Cross.